Hello, guys, what is up, and welcome back to the Sports Shift with me, Ian Marquez. The Premier League is back, only 3 more weeks of action, still a little bit to play for. So much to talk about, let's get started.
3, 2, 1.
So here we have the first matchup. We're going to have a load of games starting off Saturday morning. Usually we have the fixtures pretty spread out, but as this is one of the last weeks, they start to get a little condensed. The only external games we have now for England are Europa League final and the FA Cup final. After that, it's just 10 Premier League games each week, and before we call it a wrap. So we're starting off with the first game of the week. We have Fulham welcoming Everton. Fulham, as usual, a mixed bag. They're pretty inconsistent, lacking goals. Rodrigo Muniz is probably their most informed striker. Raul Jimenez just has been a little off of it all season. And the likes of Iwobi, Traore, Smith Rowe, Sessegnon, they'll give you glimpses, but they won't ever be that consistent. So while they are pretty solid defensively, Marco Silva has done a great job in building a solid side. It's not really too sure if they're going to score and where the goals will come from. As you can see, aside from that win against Liverpool, they've had some pretty inconsistent results and it's a little disappointing. Similarly to Everton, yes, David Moyes has set the shit right. They've become a lot more solid, as you would expect under David Moyes. But similarly to Fulham, you're just not sure where the goals are coming from. Right, unlike Everton, to concede 2 goals and only come out with a draw against Ipswich, a little bit disappointing. That being said, these two teams face off. Fulham do still have a chance at Europe, so it's pretty interesting. You would expect them obviously to have more to play for, and if I had to choose, I would pick Fulham to edge it, but I'm not too sure. I could easily see a draw because I'm just not sure where the goals come from. Expect a very cagey game, probably a little boring, but you never know. It's the Premier League, so anything can happen. We have Ipswich welcoming Brentford, an informed Brentford side making a charge for one of those European positions. Ipswich sit pretty comfortably in 18th. You know they're going to be in the Champions League next season. Yes, they have nothing to play for, but we often see with the relegation sides that when you have nothing to play for, it usually frees you up a little bit. You get to play with a little bit of freedom, and we saw 2 goals. Entiso is going to remain in the Premier League. He's one of the brighter sparks for Ipswich right now. The likes of Liam Delap, maybe Omari Hutchinson, they both have chances of staying in Premier League. And right now they're basically playing for the transfer. So they're all going to be putting on their best, potentially trying to get a move to stay in the top flight. Brentford, the right impressive win against Manchester United. We know United were rotating in preparation of the Europa League semi-final, but that has nothing to do with Brentford. They had to play what was in front of them, and they dominated that game. The scoreline flattered Manchester United. It really was not that close, and I expect Brentford to run routes. The likes of Brian Mbeumo, Johan Wissa, Kevin Schad, they just have so many options, and whether it's on the counter, set pieces, they're just so dynamic, interchangeable. I think they score like 4 goals in this game. Wouldn't be surprised. Southampton hosting Manchester City. I mean, it's the Premier League, so you never know what to expect, but come on. You definitely expect Manchester City to run routes. They're also playing for their position in preparation for FA Cup final. Everybody's going to want a piece of the action against Crystal Palace. So you're telling the manager, look, this is what I can do. Put me in, coach. Erling Haaland is back fit. Whether he'll start, I'm not sure. I highly doubt it. I think they're going to save him, bring him off the bench and save him for the FA Cup final. But that leaves Marmoush, Savinho, Jack Grealish, Jeremy Doku, Phil Foden, Kevin De Bruyne, all fighting for those other 2 attacking spots to try and feature in the FA Cup final. So I expect them not to take it lightly against Southampton. I expect them to run route. They're going to want to keep a clean sheet. You know, Manchester City have to give up the odd goal in a random game, so I wouldn't be surprised if Southampton nick a goal the likes of Onachu, Mateus Fernandes, maybe a 3-4-1. I wouldn't be surprised. But I would like to think that Manchester City would be able to keep a clean sheet against the likes of Southampton. Wolves at home to Brighton. This one's a little more interesting. Brighton have looked to have been righting the ship a little bit. An impressive draw, kind of an unfortunate draw against Newcastle. A late penalty at the hands of Alexander Isak, 11 in the score, and Brighton probably should have won that game. That being said, Wolves are in fine form. Look past the loss against Manchester City, which was a little closer than you would expect. Matheus Cunha is still in fine form. He can create a chance out of anything. He can shoot from anywhere. As I would expect Wolves to edge this game. Both defensive have been a little bit questionable, so I do expect it to be high scoring. But they're the home team. They're in fine form. Matheus Cunha is playing to try and attract Premier League interest from all over. So, I mean, what can I say? I definitely expect Wolves to edge this one. But if you look in recent records, Brighton do dominate this fixture typically. So, who knows? Off of recent form, I would go with Wolves, but let me know. Bournemouth at home to Aston Villa. Both teams in with a chance at Europe. Aston Villa, chances of Champions League look a little more distant right now, but never say never. And Bournemouth still in a strong position to qualify for Europa League. Bournemouth had an impressive win to complete the double against Arsenal. Aston Villa beating who was in front of them. Aston Villa had a tough run of fixtures. This is going to be one of the easier fixtures before the end of the season. Well, I don't know, because after that they'll play Spurs and Man United. Spurs will be preparing for Europa League final, so they'll probably have heavy rotation. Man United or Man United. It's going to be after the Europa League final, so maybe they'll be on the beach celebrating, or maybe they would have lost the final and then come and put in another shocking performance. Who knows what to expect there. But that being said, Bournemouth have looked really good recently. Draw against Man United, which was unfortunate due to Evan Nilsson's red card. Impressive win against Arsenal, and I don't know, they'll be without Dango Ouattara, but they still have the likes of Semenyo, Evan Nilsson, Justin Kluivert, a lot of quality, and it's going to be a really good game. Looking forward to this game a lot. Let me know what you guys think. I think I would lean Aston Villa just because they have a little more quality and maybe a little more to play for. Like, you could already say, or you could argue that Bournemouth already have had a very successful season by their terms, and it would be disappointing if they don't qualify for Europe after the strong start. But I mean, it's still a really good season in their mind, so it wouldn't be too heartbroken. Aston Villa just came out of youth Champions League quarterfinal, and they'd like to get back there again. They certainly have the quality, so it's going to be interesting. Let me know what you guys think. Newcastle at home to Chelsea, 4th playing 5th. This game is huge for the Champions League race. Chelsea has some very difficult fixtures, as do Newcastle. 3 points are needed by both to try and lengthen the gap between Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa below. Newcastle have been a little bit shaky recently. Isaac has looked a little out of form. They've missed Joe Linton's presence in the midfield, and I'm not too sure. Chelsea, well, they're starting to put some wins together. Their defenses look pretty solid. Cole Palmer with a penalty, finally back in the goals. I mean, I would hold my horses to consider his form, but he is back in the goals, and you never know. Enzo Fernandez, Nicholas Jackson all getting goals recently. Maybe Chelsea are back to the old ways. I guess we'll see. However, Newcastle at home are a strong force, and I wouldn't be surprised if they edge this one. But it's going to be a very cagey game, very tactical game, and I think Newcastle would a lot rather a draw than a loss. So I think they might come out a little cagey, but they still have the quality. They have Alexander Isak, Harvey Barnes, Jacob Murphy, probably the second best midfield in the Premier League, the likes of Sandro Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes. So much creativity, so dynamic. Anything can happen in this game, and we'll see what happens, because the results will have huge ramifications for Champions League. Man United at home to West Ham. Well, Man United are not going to risk anything. Anybody with a niggle, you're not having a chance, because they're getting ready for the Europa League final against Spurs. So the likes of Mazraoui, he's probably going to get a rest, because you can see he looks really tired. Ahmad Mason Mount, they're definitely not going to start because we don't want to risk them. maybe they'll come off the bench just to keep things fresh. I could see the likes of Casemiro getting some minutes, maybe Kobe Mainoo to maintain his freshness. Højlund, Garnacho, in my mind they can play because I don't want them playing in the Europa League final. And with the defense, I don't know, like Luke Shaw, I want him to get some minutes, but there's always that risk of injury, you know, with these players. So it's gonna be a little risky. I wouldn't be surprised if Onana also doesn't play. But I'm not too confident in Bayern there, so I guess we'll see there. West Ham, well, the results don't show it. They've been pretty creative attacking recently. The likes of Jared Bowen, always in the goals or assists, supported by Mohamed Kudus, Lucas Paqueta. West Ham can always create, always have a chance of scoring, so I wouldn't be surprised if both teams score in this one. With regards to the result, I mean, I think a draw is fair. I don't know what Amorim is going to do, how strong he's going to put out a side. Even if he puts out a strong side, who knows anymore with this Manchester United side. So that we know West Ham did win the reverse fixture at the London Stadium. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if West Ham win this. United's form has been poor in the league. They're not going to risk anything, so you never know. But if I had to pick, I think I would lean West Ham. Nottingham Forest against Leicester. Forest have by far the easiest run of fixtures for all the teams challenging for Champions League. They weren't able to take advantage of the game against Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace were fresh off that semi-final win in the FA Cup semis, and maybe they were on a high, but they came to play and Nottingham Forest had no answer. It was a little fortunate to share the points because Crystal Palace were definitely the better team. That being said, they're playing Leicester. Leicester's attack has been dreadful. Yes, they did just beat Southampton, but Southampton are bottom of the league for a reason. So I would expect Forest to win here, and Forest would definitely try to get that goal difference up. So for the likes of Chris Wood, Anthony Lange, Morgan Gibbs-White to all create chances, always looking to get in and amongst the goals. And I think Forest would definitely like to get back to that solid defence that they started the season with and keep a clean sheet. Is it possible? Of course it's possible against this Leicester team, but they have been creating more chances recently and they have been scoring goals like Sabinote, Jamie Vardy. I know they're probably without Mavididi still, but they do have the chance to create if you let them. They are still a Premier League team after all. Jamie Vardy, what a career he's had, the amount of goals he's scored. So if you give them a sniff, there is a chance to take it. But I expect Nottingham Forest to be pretty professional and dominate this game from start to finish. Spurs against Palace. Similarly to Man United, Spurs will be heavy in rotation, protecting all of their key assets ahead of that Europa League final. And Palace, yes, they're preparing for their FA Cup final next week, but that being said, come on. They're going to want to continually push. They have a slim chance of getting Europe through the league. It's very, very unlikely, but you can always climb to a higher position, keep that form. I expect the likes of Mateta to be rotated, but Eze, Sarr, Danny Munoz, Terry Mitchell, that solid defensive Gueye. I mean, I think that they'll play a strong side. I think they'll play a majority of the game. And I think it's a pretty dominant display from Crystal Palace. I definitely would not be surprised if Palace edge this one. But if Spurs start a strong side, yes, Palace do tend to concede a few chances. So I can also see Spurs scoring. So if they start a strong side, I would lean towards a draw. But expecting heavy rotation, and Postecoglou trying to save his job by winning the Europa League, I think Crystal Palace win this one comfortably. Liverpool against Arsenal. Arsenal, the supposed title challengers, will now be giving Liverpool a guard of honour. And it's going to be a really interesting matchup because Arsenal had a pretty abysmal game against Bournemouth. Everyone thought they would rotate heavily in preparation for the Champions League semi-final second leg. They didn't. They started a very strong side, and still it wasn't enough, which was pretty devastating, pretty demoralizing. And then to bow out to PSG, yes, they put out a very good effort. They fought hard, they played pretty well. PSG were just a better side, but that's no shame on Arsenal. Arsenal still play really well. No one expects them to get that far, so credit where credit is due. And that being said, Liverpool, a pretty dismal performance against Chelsea, and I think they're going to step it up. Yes, they have the title claimed, but You know, they're playing for personal records. Salah is going to want to rack up those goals. And the likes of Nunez, Jota, Gakpo, Diaz. I mean, they've had okay seasons, not great. They're going to want to just show Arne Slot, yes, I'm here to stay, I'm good enough. And especially like to Nunez and Jota. I mean, someone needs to claim that number 9 spot. Right now, it's anyone's to claim. Are Liverpool going to go to the market? Who knows? In their second last home game of the season, what is Trent's reception going to be like? Is Trent going to start? I mean, it's been confirmed now that he's leaving the club, as we all suspected. And it's going to be pretty interesting to see, because Liverpool fans have not been pleased with how he's gone about it. I think he's been pretty professional. Players don't often have control of their future like this, so when the chance comes around and you're at the top of your game, I mean, it's pretty obvious what the player is going to do. But I guess from the fan side, think about this loyalty thing, which usually is a one-way street. So you can let me know what you think about the transfer. We're getting back to the game. I think they're going to share the points as they did in the return fixture at the at the Emirates. I think it's going to be high scoring. Both teams have been leaking goals recently. Both teams do have strong attacks. Arsenal can now fully focus on the Premier League after the exit from the Champions League. They're going to want to get back on track, and the likes of Saka is going to want to get back on the goals. Odegaard has had a pretty poor season. He's going to want to get back on it, and they technically don't have Champions League secured. It's definitely don't have second place secured, and after all of that hype, they're not going to want to drop below Man City, so they're going to try and hold on to second place. I think they probably will, and I think they're going to put out a very good performance against Liverpool, but I do think they share the points. So here are all the fixtures, and as I told you previously, here are my predictions. I expect Fulham to win at home against Everton, no surprise there. Brentford and Manchester City to do the business against the relegated sides of Ipswich and Southampton. Wolves narrowly edge a high-scoring game at home to Brighton. Aston Villa just show their quality against Bournemouth. That's going to be cagey, probably low-scoring. And the likes of Newcastle and Chelsea, nothing to split them. Both similar sides, very strong, one above each other in the table. Manchester United against West Ham, I think they edge it just because United put out a weaker side. West Ham's defense have been pretty shaky. They're in 17th for a reason, and I think maybe both teams score 1 or 2 goals and it finishes in a draw. Forest against relegated Leicester, fighting for Champions League. I expect Forest to put out a very dominant performance. Crystal Palace against Spurs, I expect Crystal Palace to win. Spurs will be rotating heavily. And then Arsenal and Liverpool, I expect to share the points, as Liverpool will want to end the season on a strong note. I know that they've already won the league, but their performances, they want to be at least respectable, you know? So as we talked about, the title race is over. The relegation is confirmed. All we have left to play for are the European spots. Arsenal, more than likely, they're in. So that leaves 3 spots for 5 teams. 3 games left. It is neck and neck. Anyone can win it. Anyone can drop out. Who's it going to be? Let me know. Right now we have Man City on 64 points, followed by the next 3 teams, Newcastle, Chelsea, Nottingham Forest, all on 63 points, and Aston Villa on 60. You would expect Man City to win 2 of the last 3 games at a minimum, so they would be in. You would expect Forest to beat Leicester, but aside from that, the rest of the games are so cagey. I mean, Forest have West Ham and Chelsea. Yes, you would expect them to beat West Ham, but you never know. Forest's form has been pretty poor. Newcastle have Chelsea, Arsenal, and Everton. Everton you expect them to beat, but the next 2 games before that, very cagey. Chelsea have Newcastle, United, and Forest, all except United, difficult games. And Aston Villa have Bournemouth, Spurs, and United. So these are all like not the easiest of fixtures, pretty tricky, and it's literally anyone's to play for. Forest's form has been poor. Out of the few of these, I think Chelsea and Man City probably have the strongest form, but they don't have the easiest fixtures. So it's set up perfectly. Let me know what you guys think. Who is going to claim these last Champions League spots? I am sticking with my bets of Manchester City, Newcastle, and Nottingham Forest, believe it or not. That being said, the Chelsea's form, I can easily see Chelsea keeping Nottingham Forest at bay, especially because they're up on the goal difference factor, which means Forest will have to outscore them on points. So it's going to be very interesting. It may come down to the last game where Nottingham Forest played Chelsea, in fact, and that would be a game to watch because that would probably decide it. But that being said, every week we're going to be watching this for the rest of the season, and I'm very interested to see what happens. So, as usual, we look at our stats courtesy of Rob T FPL. These allow us to predict clean sheet odds, goal scoring odds, and you can use these odds to formulate bets or any little prediction that you want, basically. And, well, we have the teams against the relegated teams with the highest chance of a clean sheet. Obviously, Nottingham Forest and Manchester City. Following that, we have the likes of Fulham against Everton, just because Everton have been so weak offensively. Brentford against another relegated team in Ipswich, and United very surprisingly high. I think that flashes them because they're not going to start a strong team. Even if they do, I'd be very surprised if they keep a clean sheet. Liverpool against Arsenal with a 28% is surprisingly high because Arsenal do have the goal in them, man. They do have enough creativity. I know the goals have started to dry up as opposed to what they did at the beginning of the season, but I would expect both teams to score in that fixture. On the other side of it, you have Manchester City expected to score just under 2 goals. Nottingham Forest, Brentford both expected to score over 2 goals. And then the likes of Newcastle, United, Fulham, Spurs, Bournemouth, Palace, Liverpool, all expected to score at least 1.6 goals. How these odds are calculated is basically you run a simulation 100 times. And you would say on average, if Manchester City played against Southampton 100 times, they would score on average 2.9 goals. That's basically how they're calculated. I know you can't score 2.9 goals in an actual game, but there you have it. So as usual, when you have those odds, you're going to take out their best players, their most clinical, most attacking players. And if a team has a high chance of scoring, often it's going to be the player that has the best chance of scoring, takes the most shots, gets the most positions, the best positions. They're going to be up here top in these charts. This is a projected goal scorers chart, and it does depend on the player starting. So Haaland is at the top, but we're not sure if he's going to start. If he starts, he's expected to score 1 goal every time he plays Southampton. Marmoush right behind him. He's been in good form, although he did play out on the right last week, which was a little shaky. He didn't look as clinical or aggressive as he usually does. Chris Wood has been in a little dip in his form, but he's playing against Leicester, one of the weakest teams in the league, so you would expect him to get just a few chances. Wissa and Mbeumo, they're playing against Ipswich. Both of them are going to be in fine form. I expect both of them to score. And then we have the likes of Salah, De Bruyne, Raul Jimenez. Definitely will stay away from that one. And Cunha against Brighton, who I do like. Cunha does take a lot of chances and is pretty selfish, so that is definitely one to keep your eye on. So I have all 3 teams that are playing a relegated side. Mbeumo and Wissa for Brentford, and Marmoush for Man City. I expect all of them to be in and among the goals. These teams are completely relegated. They're completely on the beach. Maybe they're playing for a transfer away, but they don't have much to play for except pride. And Mbeumo against relegated sides always does the business. He's always in form with goals or assists. Wissa is in fine form. He's been one of the best strikers this season, and Marmoush has hit the ground running at Manchester City. What more do I need to say? Jump on this one, guys. For yellow cards, well, I have Declan Rice against Liverpool, McAllister against Arsenal. 2 of these midfielders are feisty. They don't take any prisoners, and this game is going to be a dynamic end-to-end game. So especially on the counter, or if a team wins possession, both these teams like to counter press, get to them as soon as possible before they can get comfortable on the ball. And I expect those fouls to rack up, the game to be feisty, so I wouldn't be surprised if either player gets a yellow card. Moises Caicedo is playing against Newcastle. We know how dynamic that midfield is. Sandro Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes are very fast. Even Joe Willock, if he's filling in for Joe Linton, which you would expect. The front line, Barnes, Jacob Murphy, Alexander Isak, all very dynamic, very explosive. And Caicedo does so much covering in that midfield in front of the defense. you would expect those fouls to rack up. Maybe one gets away from him and he gets a yellow card. For the full-time result, well, we had the 3 teams playing the relegated sides: Brentford, Nottingham Forest and Man City. And then we have Wolves against Brighton. I told you this was a little iffy because Brighton have been seemingly finding their feet, but Wilson been in such fine form, the likes of Matheus Cunha, and I just think the Edge just won at home. Let me know what you guys think. Now we're just going to make a couple of betting picks. I have Man City and Brentford to win, both at over 2.5 goals. You could bet to nil, but Man City sometimes are a little shaky, similar to Brentford. These relegated teams can nick a goal out of nowhere, so I wouldn't be surprised there. But you would definitely expect both teams to win, and I expect a high-scoring game. Liverpool and Arsenal, both defenses have been a little weak recently. I expect both teams to score. Which way it goes, I can't really predict because I don't know what sort of strength Arsenal is going to put out, as well as Liverpool. Are they going to get some rest and rotation after that tough Champions League game? Is Liverpool going to give minutes to some youngsters? Can't really predict it. But that being said, I do expect both teams to score. So that's a pretty safe cover since we don't know what we're going to get. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. Let me know if you made any picks. Do mine make any sense? Did you jump on them? Are you fading me? Let me know. Otherwise, enjoy this weekend's Premier League action, and I'll see you guys later.